Hello. Oh, it's on. I figure we can get started now. Should I close the door? Leave it open? Okay. Hi. I'm James Cooper. I'm here with Patty Ramert, and we're from Jefferson School of Law. And we're presenting on Drupal and the technology we use to put together our website. I'm really just here to do the introductory bit. Patty is the nerd behind the site, the real expert in the room. But I wanted to give a little background on how we got to the decision that we made. I think what's important is we're not here because we think we have the best law school website, or because we think we did everything right, or even picked the right technology, but just to talk about our experience and how it got us to where we are. So, 2.5, 3 years ago, I started at Thomas Jefferson. We were building a $90 million brand new campus, and I kept hearing over and over again, we need a new website. We need a new website. And it's true. The site that we had, it wasn't hideous. It wasn't god-awful terrible, but it certainly didn't reflect where we were going with the campus and the sort of branding that we wanted to have out there and what we wanted to say about ourselves. But it was getting to the point where it was time for a refresh, so went around and did some sort of asking, discovery, what's wrong with this site? What should we do? It's old. Okay. It's old. Is that a good reason to build a new site? I don't know. I don't like it. Another good feedback chunk from people. Nothing that was really, something that was very weighty or that was really actually subjective or factual, right? They were so busy just giving us their opinion that we had to kind of extrapolate from that what we thought would be the right thing to do. So, fact. It's hard to use. This is true. It used to be one of those sites that you had the fly-out, drop-down navigation that was so popular at the beginning of the 20th century, if you will. And you're trying to get your mouse to stick, and then the navigation flies away, and you start all over again. Very hard to use as far as finding content. Fact, the content is inconsistent. This is true. You look through any of the pages, you'll see that different headers are used, or not used at all, or in different formats, or in different colors, or in all caps, and screaming at you how excited they are you've come to their page. And then even repetitious. The headline on the page reflects the headline on the header above, but just a lot of sort of wasted space. So we're all in agreement what's wrong with the website. This should be a really easy project. I'm pretty excited to do it at this point, right? No. You come along and you make some suggestions about what you should do, and everybody freaks out. This is not what I expected you were going to do when I said I didn't like it. Well, the fact is that people are saying, my stuff is really important on the website, right? People read my stuff on the website. I'm kind of a big deal, and I want to make sure that, that I'm represented. So what we needed was evidence, proof that the concept we had about how things should be structured and what type of content was important was legit and be able to back it up. So we used analytics. We had Google Analytics running on our site. And we could pull up facts that showed, what percentage of traffic was hitting any one page and how long people were staying, and sort of prove to them in a sort of diagrammed way what content was being used, whether important content or not, what content was being used. And what you can find out from that is that 5 pages really got the most traffic. 5 pages out of this whole website full of really important content, stuff that people read. People are putting effort into writing this stuff, and no one's looking at it. So the rest of the site got almost none. And the question is why? Is it because it's, just crappy content? Well, the truth is it's hard to use, right? We're back to that point. The content is buried. When you look at this navigation again, you're trying to search, essentially, every single time you use the drop-down. And every time you navigate yourself somewhere, all that navigation disappears. And once again, you don't know what's available to you. So you kind of look at that as one of the reasons that the content was not getting read. We could also agree that the 5 pages where content was being looked at were important, but they were important for only one of our audiences. It was all about the incoming student, right? Everybody's looking at admissions, the cost, reading up on the faculty who would be their instructors. So we had to sit down and talk about who are the audiences. What's the purpose of the website? What's it really there for? And in our case, we came to an agreement that it was more of a marketing piece to talk to the potential student, talk to the potential colleague, to advertise ourselves to the legal community, to talk about ourselves to the educational community, to bring the alumni back in and get their money. So in the end, we figured out the website wasn't for our students, really, which is awesome, because now we need 2 websites. And so we really got to this point where we figured out there was a lot more to do than just get a graphic designer and a web developer and throw them in a room and say, hey, we need a website. It's old. I don't like it. So I'm going to sort of jump forward in time a little bit instead of going through the whole process we went through and talk about the tools we used to get to the point where Patty's going to talk about, the Drupal technology. In order to communicate what we thought the structure of the site should be and to come to some kind of agreement with each other, we used site architectures, showing different pictures, different graphics that would show the location of content within the organization of the site and how those pages would interact with each other, cross-link to each other. I'm not going to dig into any one of these particularly deep. That's not the point of the presentation today. But I can talk about it if anybody has any questions afterward. We also looked at site schematics. So now we can agree on a structure of where the content should be, what these pages should be called, where they should be housed, what categories they fall in. But what are the site features? What are the elements of the page? How do we define the content itself? It goes beyond just the title and the words. So we put together schematics to talk about how things should function, again, get buy-in from various constituents, and how a tool that can be used to communicate features, not as much design, but features to the web dev and the graphic designer. And those get turned into design comps that we went down the road of 3 different designs, 2 of which were rejected. I guess we couldn't pick all 3. And the third one was the winner, and we used those to communicate how things went from structure to elements of the design and the functionality to the look and feel of the site, so we could fine-tune everything and hand it off to the web developer to have a foundation to move forward. So that's the question, right? We can move forward, but with what technology? Well, Patty Ramert, who's next up, our web application developer, who's very nervous, is going to come up and talk, give the length of the presentation, the bulk of it, about why we chose the technology we did and how we implemented it. Patty?
Well, thank you for the presentation, introduction. So I come in and James shows me this huge project management chart that says, in December, I started in December, mid-December, and he says that I need to have this website up in August in time for the beginning of school. So, and we don't know what CMS is going to use, and since I'm going to be developing it, I need to find it. So what do? You go to Google. So Google brought me to cmsmatrix.org. That's why this is great. It has categories, and it breaks it down really good, but there was 1,182 CMSs listed. How am I supposed to find one out of all of those? So, of course, they have sorting and comparison features, so I go through and find what we need, and I end up with a ton of different ones still. So I'm like, okay, how am I going to sort through this? So Boss Randy tells me, he's like, why don't you look at the Kepner triage decision-making model? So again, back to Google, what's this? So I go through and I'm reading text and reading text. I'm like, I don't understand this. I'm not really getting it. Then I find this lovely image, which is really old because it still has a cassette player on there. But it's easy to understand. You take, in this case, a car and what you must have in this car. And if it doesn't have that feature, it's out. You keep the ones that have the musts. Then you take your wants that you need and you weight them based on the importance. Then you take each car and score them, score the wants, multiply them, and then you get totals. And there's another part of this where you do the negatives, but I didn't do that. I just kept with the positives. And I ended up with this. And I ended up with 4 different ones, and this is good because then I was able to demo these sites, these CMSs, test them, and see how they work. And as you can see, Drupal actually didn't come in first. But ultimately, because I was developing it, I was going to be working with it, I found Drupal the best for me to use and figure out. So that's how I ended up with Drupal. Now, recently my friend, she was kind of the same situation I was in. She needs to find a content management system. I was talking to her, and I realized when you build websites, you kind of have this waterfall effect, kind of like the site schematics that he showed us, where you have about us, and you just kind of break it down. In Drupal, it's not, you can set it up like that, but it's not built that way. It has 5 layers. First, you have your data nodes, and this is just basically records in the database. They don't really belong anywhere. They're just records. And then you have the modules. And what's nice about Drupal is that modules are little programs that you can add on, and so you don't have to have everything. For example, if you don't use e-commerce, you don't have to install the Uber cart module. You only have to install the modules that you need. And then you have your blocks and your menus, and this is where it sets up your structure for the website. Then, of course, these are permissions, who can see what. And then you have your template, which is your look and feel. So you're able to change your look and feel easily without having to go through and change all your business logic. So I'm going to take you through my 1.5 years of building the TJSL website and our portal and touchscreen. So first thing I had to do was, based on his wireframe, I had to determine the different content types we had on our site. Of course, we have the pages. We have static pages that don't change that often. We have the departments, which have the hours of operation, have their phone number, email. Then we also have the people with directories with their phone numbers and emails, and how to contact them. The locations in different buildings where these department and people are located. And of course, calendar events. Announcements. Announcements are just quick announcements that expire. They have an expiration date. And that's what the difference is between news. News don't have expiration dates, so more like press releases. And we have the blogs. Blogs are pretty straightforward. Everybody knows blogs. Photo albums. And of course, our promo boxes down in the sidebars. And I'm going to go into a little bit of detail on those later on. So to connect all these, I had to use taxonomy. Taxonomy was really, really, really big in me developing this site. So this was my flow chart that helped me understand how all these content types would relate to each other in the taxonomy. And it's kind of confusing, but it really helped me in seeing how everything was going to be connected. For example, we have a news type, and we have 3 different news types. We have student news, we have faculty news, and then we have the general TJSL news. And so what I did was I connected the taxonomy news type to the news content type. I use the module views. It's a very essential module. I think almost anybody that uses Drupal will install views at one point. I use it for building queries. It helps in that you don't have to know SQL. You don't have to worry about the different tables in Drupal. And it can be kind of confusing at first when you first use it, but there's lots of tutorials online, lots of instructions. There's lots of resources to learn. It's a very, very powerful module. I use it for almost everything. It's basically my query interface. So I started with the employee directory because that's really easy to understand and how they all work together. And learning Drupal, I thought that was a great start. And I ended up with this. We have the department information at the top. We have the people information. And of course, it didn't look like this when I first built it. It ended up looking, it was just plain text with images and everything. So, another thing that I struggled with was the sidebar logic. Now, we were only going to allow 3 items on the sidebar. And depending on the page you were on, you were going to have the department information, or they could have a tertiary navigation as well as the department information. So there wasn't a module out there that I could find that would have this kind of business logic in it. So I actually had to create a module that would do this for me. So, and recently at DrupalCon, I was talking to some people from other education, and everything that always comes up is faculty profiles. Faculty profiles. How do we manage faculty profiles? Well, for us, we have our faculty, we have their name, the basic information, their education, and a little bio and everything, but as well as we have their scholarships, which has their book, their editorships, and articles, as well as presentation. We also have news and expertise, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Now, the scholarship and presentation was one that I was so proud because when I made the content type for the people, I had everything all in one content type. I was like, great, everything's in one place, it's going to be easy to update. Well, it turned out that some of our faculty have so much scholarship and so many presentations that the browser would actually crash when the editor would go in to edit. So I had to pull all those out and use the module node reference to get them in. So when the editor comes in, if they want to edit a book, instead of having to load the whole entire content type, you'd only load the books. And that's been working pretty well so far. I also use node reference for the news types, the news content type. When the editor enters a news item, they have the option to enter the faculties that are related to them. And this I use with node reference, and it pulls, so when you come to the faculties page, you get all their news listing. And this helps so that the news editor doesn't have to go to the faculties page and enter the news information there. It's all in one place. They don't have to worry about going to 20 different places to change information. The expertise is also done the same way, except with taxonomy. Like I said, I use taxonomy heavily in the site. So what about the content maintainers? Well, Drupal has roles already, a roles module already kind of built in. So you can create different roles for different people. For instance, I have a page editor, and then there's also the Drupal 1 user, the super user. And you can customize these so they can see different things. Now, these look very similar, but as you can see in the role in the page editor and in the super user, there's things that are different and that are missing. For example, you don't want the user to change the URL of the site. You don't want them to change about TJSL to something else. You don't want them to move about from the main navigation down to hidden somewhere. So those are just some of the things that you can get very granular in what the editor sees and what they can do. So I'm going to skip up ahead until about August, about 2 weeks until we're supposed to launch. James asked me, so are you ready to launch? I'm like, well, I'm pretty far ahead here, and nothing is ever going to be perfect. You can give me another year, it's not going to be perfect. So I said, sure, let's do it. And 3 weeks later, I had the site up. Took 2 weeks to kind of finalize everything, do the punch list with communications, and then another week to kind of fix the bugs and everything that everybody found while we launched the site. And I survived. And there's our site. Now, this is actually one of the hardest sites that I've had to build in CSS-wise. I'm not the best at CSS, but I've learned so much in building this. And every time I build a site, I learn more and more. And I feel I'm getting better and better. When I first started, I was given this document that said our old site was ranked 80th in the Georgetown study of top 10 law schools homepages for 2009. This year, in February, we got that list, and we ended up getting number 35. So it's nice to see that just the little overhaul that we did, well, it wasn't very little, but we did the overhaul, it brought us up in rankings, and there's always room for improvement. So now that the website was functional, it was time for subsites. So we came up with, well, the designer came up with 10 different color-themed templates for our subsites. And this helps with, like, for instance, the student organizations. It helps them keep their branding in the color that best represent their organization. They also have different sidebars and different main navigations. Now, I couldn't find a module that would meet our needs. Here's the sidebar images, sidebar items that they can have. But I couldn't find a module that could do it, so I actually had to create my own module. And what I did was I created, this is another example of the difference between the subsites. You can have different colors and headings and everything. So I created a new content type. It's called subsite settings. And this contains all of the settings for the subsites for their sidebar items, their main navigation, so they know, Drupal knows which navigation to pull. This actually doubles as letting me know what subsites I have in the, on our website. So I used a base theme. And I love this about Drupal, is you have your base theme when you use, you saw there's 10 different colors and themes. I didn't want to build 10 different templates and 10 different files. So what I did was I took what was the same throughout the sites, built a base template, and then from there made sub-themes. And a good example of this is if I had JavaScript running on here, I could put it in my base theme, make the change there, and it would apply throughout all 10 pages, rather than going through every single page and having to change that JavaScript. So, I also use theme key. It also has a D7 module for that to help, using taxonomy again, to help with the different themes for the different pages. So that took a couple of months. I'm mid-October, and now I found out that not only would I be coding the student portal, but the touchscreen as well. Initially, I thought I was just going to be giving the data for the touchscreen, but it turned out I had to code that too. So I said, challenge accepted. I'm going to do it. So we come up with the student portal. Now, this is the wireframe for the student portal that the designer took and turned into our docket, which is in beta. So some of the features of the docket is content reuse. You reuse a lot, I'd say about 95% of the content from the main site is thrown onto the docket. Now, instead of having to duplicate all that data over and over again, I wrote some scripts that pulled the main website into the docket, and then from there I was able to kind of move it around to where I needed it. Like the student services page, for example, that's one that's different from the main site and from the student portal. The student portal is kind of targeted towards students that are currently enrolled, whereas the student services on the main site is more for just prospective students. In the first box here, we have the announcements, news, and events, and this data already exists. We pull it from the main site. Now, as you can see, all these are touchscreen announcements. If I don't want to see as a student, I don't want to see the touchscreen announcements, so we set up a subscription. So you can set only the news, announcements, and events that you want to see. So here I click, I only want to see admissions announcements, and now I see, anytime I go to the docket, I will see the announcements only. And you have the option to view all announcements if you wanted to, but initially it will show only your announcements that you chose. So, some other things that we have in progress is the marketplace. And this is going to be maintained by the SBA or monitored by the SBA, and it's there for students to exchange books or sell their books. If I'm looking for a roommate or anything like that, they could post it on there, and you can only see this information if you have an Active Directory account with the school. We also plan to have recorded lectures so that as a student and I log into the docket, I'm only going to see the classes only my classes that have lectures. And also the document library, which is maintained by the faculty assistants, which contains book lists, exam schedules, and past exams. One that's not showing up in here is also our Gmail. And I have this working And I used Zen to connect to Gmail. And basically what we were trying to accomplish was just read only of the most recent, like it's about 12 messages in your inbox. And I had it working, and you clicked read, and it would show. But when James tried it, it didn't work. So I had to put pause on that one. I couldn't figure that one out just yet. So this brings me around to the end of November and the beginning of December. Now let's throw another curveball. The students were going to connect through our student portal to log into the wireless. I've never done this before. So he connected me with one of our contractors, and he gave me a link to the Cisco site. I'm like, okay. And again, more text. I'm very visual. I need examples. I need to see it in action. So I'm reading, and I find a link that gives me a sample of their login. So I take this, I try it, and it worked. Great. Now, how am I going to integrate this into Drupal? Well, I'm still working on the student portal and the touchscreen, so I said, okay, I'm going to put it to the side, add it to the list. There's always a list. So now I'm going to take you through my experience with the touchscreen. This is a touchscreen. We have these in the elevator lobbies, and some floors have 2 of them, but every single floor has one by the elevators. We reused a lot of content also on here. For example, we have our upcoming events, which is reused, and I'm going to go through some of the other ones in a little bit of detail and how we reuse the content. So one of the things we have in here is our people and places search, our announcement search, and events. So if I come into the building and I'm looking for me, I could type in the name of the person I'm looking for in full or in a little bit. If I'm here looking for, there's my information, and you can find them on the map. So we have one for every floor, and I used a simple query string to determine which floor that you're on. So each touch screen says, okay, this is the first floor, this is the second floor, this is the third floor, so that you will come up depending on what floor you're on. We also have the East Village directory, which we took the API. The designer did this part for me, thank goodness. And he put that together, and I did the CSS for it. And we came up with using the Yelp API to find food and entertainment in the area, so when people come and visit, they can use our touchscreen to find places to go. I made the touchscreen independent from Drupal. It's not built in Drupal. It uses Drupal's views. I'm using a lot of jQuery. This was my crash course in jQuery and JavaScript. I had worked very little with JavaScript, never worked with jQuery, and I learned a lot building this. I used a views bonus pack, which has like the RSS, and you can download XML documents and CVS documents using that. And so that's how I'm able to pull a lot of this data in. I also had to create 2 new content types. I had to create the posters and announcement content type. And one of the problems I had with this was the jQuery plugin that I used. It has a bug with the circular mode, and what happened was during launch, it would stay on, and it would become unresponsive after a while because it would just use up all the browser memory. So to remedy that, I actually put these posters in a circular and put it in an iframe, and then the iframe refreshes every hour. The actual whole page refreshes every 12 hours just to get all the content new and up to date. And another feature on here is we have our solar data, which is another project on my list to pull. We have solar panels on our roof, and that pulls in data. And I'm able to tap into that data and hopefully configure it so that it's easy for people to understand and compare how much data, how much power we're giving back to the grid and how much energy we're saving. So this brings me to Christmas break and through New Year's. We're moving into the new building, and I'm working from home and just trying to get this touchscreen and portal working for the first day of school. James calls me in on the Thursday or Friday before school starts and says, hey, we need that portal up and running and the wireless login working. I'm like, Okay, are you serious? Okay, and so I have 4 days to get this running. So we have the LDAP integration model. We have our ADs, our students are in our Active Directory, so I'm able to use the LDAP module. Great, great module. I had actually tested this module earlier in the year, so I had a little head start on that, and so I was able to figure that out within a day or so. So it has information on setting up on here, but that wasn't enough for me. I need my visual. This website here helped me, had screenshots of their setup, of course, with the important things scratched out, but it helped me tremendously, and I thank people for doing that, because if it wasn't for them, I don't know, I'd be pulling my hair out. So once I got the LDAP integration module set up with Drupal, then I had to work on the login for the student docket. There was, I'm going to go back to one. The LDAP module, what's really nice about that is that the password isn't stored in Drupal, and the user cannot make changes to Active Directory, and it's actually the DN string that you use, you can assign roles as that person logs in. So that's really nice. I have it set up so if we have students logging in or if employees log in, I know the difference and can assign different permissions based on their roles. So this is the login screen for the docket. Now this is a really, really small flow chart of how, I mean, this thing is massive. There's so many elements that I had to worry about. Is this person coming from on campus? Is this person coming from home? If they're coming from home, I don't want to worry about having to log them to the wireless. But if they're not, I have to check, are they already logged into Drupal? Because if they're already logged into Drupal, I could end up with this endless loop, and it just it would be good. So I actually had to create another module that would do this checking for me. And it took me, I'd say maybe 3 days. I think on that Monday, I was that was like the finalizing, making sure it really did work. But I was surprised that I was able to get it so quickly. And not only that, but it was because I had that sample file from Cisco. So thank you again for putting that up, because I wouldn't be able to do without it. So I was able to finish it, of course, not without problems. Back to that carousel, that J carousel. Because students had never logged into the wireless, they had no settings for which categories they wanted to see. So they kept, every time they logged into the wireless, they would get this J carousel error. So again, a few days later, I had to go back and figure out what was wrong with that. And it was crazy for the next month and a half after that, because students were coming in, and we're trying to get set up in our new building, and it was just wild. And then most recently, we launched Jeffersonian, which is a student-run newspaper. And we're trying to push them to go online so that save paper, stop printing, because we're trying to go green. So some features of the Jeffersonian is the different categories they have for their articles. And they also have ads. They don't have any ads at the moment, but there's also paid ads on the side for side navigation. They have polls. They also have staff bios, so that you could see who wrote the story, and it'll list all their news that they wrote. So what's in the future? Everything. Drupal 7, the big Drupal 7. I cannot move to Drupal 7 because I heavily rely on taxonomy, so 2 of my modules have not been ported over yet. The LDAP module, which is in progress right now, I think it's in, it might be in beta mode, I'm not 100% sure, but I know it's not fully functional yet. And then there's also the taxonomy access module. The taxonomy access module allows me to get very granular with my permissions. For example, I have the SBA site, which uses the content type pages, and then I have the main site that uses the content type pages. I don't want that student to be able to edit that, the main site. I only want him to use the SBA site. So with the taxonomy I have them tagged at their SBA site, so he can only edit the SBA site. And then of course HTML5. I tried to make the Jeffersonian in HTML5. I was having problems with the browsers, and of course it's new to me too, so I'm planning on porting that over as well. And then of course to complete the student portal. That's actually my summer project, and I have the marketplace pretty much done. Just have to work with the SBA now to launch it. And of course the faculty and staff portal, that Always the last one is the faculty and staff. And then streamline projects. I've been getting a lot of requests for streamlining some of the workflows that go on in the college. For instance, one that we launched last year was a faculty book requests. The faculty can go online and request their books. They used to just email the faculty assistant, and now they go online, and it shoots out the information to everybody that needs it. And there's lots of different projects like that that I get. So lessons learned. I learned so much. Practice. Practice and ask for help. I'm still working on that one, but practice and practice and practice. You do it one way. There's 1,001 ways to do things in Drupal. There may, one might be better for somebody else. There's always a way to do it. Now, I'm reading a book on Drupal 7, and I didn't know about it at the time, but there's simple tests. Simple tests actually, you create a testing code so that anytime you make changes to your custom modules, you run these simple tests to make sure that everything is still working the way it's supposed to. And this book I'm reading, which I have on in the next slide, I have the information for that book in there. But there's also code review. Code review checks your modules to make sure that it's up to Drupal standards. Drupal's very, very picky. If you were to submit your module to Drupal, they will reject it if it's not up to their standards. So code review helps make sure that you keep everything consistent. And that's one thing that's nice about Drupal. Because everything is consistent, you expect the same quality out of everything that you download. And then you build the modules from a vanilla website. I actually haven't tried this, but what I have to do now is I have to actually make a duplicate of our site every single time and just keep building onto that. And I find out later that I should have just done it from a vanilla website and then added on from there. So I'm going to try to do that for Drupal 7. Panels and context modules. As I keep digging in further and further, I already have the site set up, but then I find that there's these panel and context module. And what panels, I believe, is it gives you different areas of the site that you can configure to display. And then context says, okay, when I'm on this page, show this data. On this page, show this data. So it kind of would help with some of the stuff that I've done already. Choose and use a versioning system. Drupal recently moved to Git, and I was looking, I use Subversion at work, and I was thinking about going to Git, but I didn't feel that it was really needed for just me. So Subversion, sometimes it has its problems, but it's worked for the most part. I was one of those people that used to do copy and paste index 1, -old, and stuff like that. So versioning system, very good. And documentation, document. It's tough to document when you're pressed for timelines and everything, but I try to document as much as I can. If I find that one moment in there where I have some time, I will go and I will try to type up information. And one of the samples is my subsite. It's 12 steps to make a subsite. If I didn't have that, it takes me about 10, 15 minutes to build it now. If I didn't have that, it would probably take me about 2 hours just to figure out, okay, what do I need to do next? What do I need to do next? So document, very, very good. So some of the resources that I used when learning Drupal. Drupal user groups. I think they're everywhere. In San Diego, we meet the second Wednesday of every month, and they actually created another one for the northern part of San Diego. There's also Drupal camps, which are mostly local created camps, but they're about 400 people. In the Drupal user groups, there are about 20 people in the meeting. So the Drupal camps, they have sessions. Birds of Feather. Birds of Feather is when people that use Drupal for related things, for instance, education, they'll come together and help talk about your experiences and just networking. And then, of course, there's activities that they do, like games and stuff. Then there's DrupalCon. These are attendees from all over the world. And they have two DrupalCons. They have one in like the U.S. and Canada, and then they have one that's overseas. I think this one is next one's in London in August. You're not going. And they have the same things. Approximately about 20,000 people. And then they have sessions, Birds of Feather, and networking, and everything else. So this is similar to the Drupal camps, but it's on a much larger scale. And then online, there's tons of resources online. There's Drupal.org. If you have problems with the module, go to the issue queue. Somebody has probably fixed it already. And I've actually made comments in there where I've found problems and fixed them and said, hey, you have to do this. So, I'm trying to give back to the community. Stack Overflow, great resource too. And I actually have a subscription to Safari Bookshelf, and I've had it for almost, like 10 years, and I absolutely love it because I'm able to get the newer books, and you get the tokens that you can download the PDFs. So I have a little PDF collection that I have. And then PHP.NET, the manual. I came from a background of ASP, VB script. So going from PHP, they have the same things, same functions, just different syntax. So I'm like, okay, how is the string length written in PHP and things like that. And then, of course, jQuery API, it's a great resource, and then jQuery UI also. And some of the books that I use, whenever I have development, even my ASP days, I had my Bible. That was my book. And I know I could look things online, but I know this book. I know where to go. I understand it. So Pro Drupal Development for Drupal 6 is my Bible at the moment. And I'm currently reading Drupal 7 Module Development, and I really like this book because it teaches you about simple test. So I really dig in it right now. And that's it. That was my year and a half in 40 minutes. So, any questions, comments?
I'd like to add really quick some of the reasons behind why we did some of the products that Patty put out there for us. So everybody, all these students get spammed all the time by us, right? We're emailing about this, emailing about that, and they learn to ignore us. I've had actually students who've created filters that automatically throw things in the trash can. They don't want to hear from certain people. And so we wanted to find a way to lighten that load, if not try to get rid of as much as possible. That led to thinking about both the student portal and the touchscreen, two different ways to sort of get in front of their eyeballs without filling up their inbox. We also had a really crummy old campus, and tacked all over the place were posters and pieces of paper, and it just helped add to that sort of lived-in feel. And we definitely wanted to get away from that with opportunity to move into a new building to start a new cultural thing. We didn't want to take away the ability to promote your events. So again, looking at the touchscreen, how could we do that? Announcements, events, that's one way, but the big visual posters was really important to have, so we wanted to make sure we added that into development. Hoop, back on. The idea behind the student portal also is that we force you to go there. You don't have a choice. You log into Wireless every single day. Every single day you land on this customized page that's built for you. And so because of that, we're trying to give you some control over it. Yes, there are things we're going to force you to look at. We will send you information you need to see because you are a second semester 2L, or because you are a 1L, or because you're in this club. But having the ability to subscribe and choose things would hope to make them linger, maybe, and not just skip right past it to Facebook as soon as they got on to the wireless network. So there was thinking behind why I kept saying to Patty, oh, and you need to do this. Anyway, so questions for Patty.
Great.
That's it. Nothing. Okay. Oh, sir.
Sure. Actually, you don't need to have a lot of PHP experience. In the Drupal user group, there's a lady there. She's a themer. There's coders and then there's themers. And those are the people, they just go in and create themes for Drupal. And they don't have to know. It's very minimal PHP, maybe like the word print and, just kind of like if statements and stuff. But you don't have to know a lot.
You said that you were reviewing code.
Oh, that's if you create your own custom module, then you can use code review to make sure that it's up to Drupal standards. It depends on the complexity of the module that you're building, but you would probably need to know a little bit about PHP.
And in the database, it uses
MySQL, yes. I think it also has a Postgres. I'm not really familiar with, but I think Drupal 7, I think you can even use MS SQL also. So yeah, but I use MySQL.
told staging site, a development site?
Oh,
something?
yeah, I didn't talk about that. I actually have, I have a live, of course, I have the live site, and then I have my development site, and that's my dev site. I copy the local copy of the main site onto my dev site and work on it from there, and then I use my versioning system to launch it, to push it out. So I make commits to it, and then launch it up.
Do you have your departments contribute their own content?
Yes, each area has their own. I don't maintain any content on the website. Just make sure it runs and that those people can access what they need to get everything up to date.
That was another big reason for going down the road the way we did, was we were trapped in a almost multi-author single entry point for getting content onto the site. And so Patty was able, through all the roles she's talked about, to crack that open. And there are certain pages that no one's allowed to touch except the communications department, and there are areas that you're allowed to own because you're a departmental expert. So it's made a huge difference in keeping content fresh and relevant and not getting stagnant.
I was just going to go further on that question about roles. Who gets to make decisions about the roles? That's
Right.
a tricky one.
I'll let James on.
We've been pretty liberal in allowing departments to have access, but it's always you, the department head, are responsible. So either you are the author or the person you trust to be the author is the author. And ultimately, it's your responsibility to stay on top of that. We haven't had any kind of crazy incidents, happy birthday to me, showing up on the website or anything like that, or inappropriate language. I'm more worried that you're spelling things right and the grammar is decent. And that's one reason we locked down so much of the site. That main content is communications department, but some of the announcements and like the subsites.
Yes, the subsites have the announcements,
Yeah.
and the president actually has the access, and then if he asks me to give somebody else access, then I do that. So.
What about costing? How did this impact on the budget compared to fire?
How much was Drupal, Patty?
0.
Right.
Everything's open source. The MySQL, the Drupals, it's all free. It's just all the community coming in.
She wasn't cheap. We hired to hire her. and we got a new graphic designer, replaced someone who was freelancing. And then we virtualized all of our servers, so it was not expensive to do the servers that she needed. So really, it's a very cost-effective way if you have staffing already.
There was someone had a hand back there, no? Earlier? Yeah.
I just wanted to, I know there's a lot of people in the room. So we're also a good resource for, not on the Technologist mailing list. You should subscribe to that.
Yes.
Talk about
Okay. Actually, somebody mentioned that to me yesterday. They asked, I told them I worked with Drupal, and they, are you in the Technoids? And I said, no, I'm not. But,
just added a block to the conference website homepage so that you can subscribe to Technologist.
awesome. I will check that out and subscribe.
Right. We're also going to be talking about Drupal at lunch today.
Yeah, I saw that.
Delicious.
Great.
Just want to ask, were there any, did you have to take any steps to ensure cross-browser functionality, or is it sort of built in?
Yes. No, because I made my own custom theme, I had to go in and make sure that it worked around the browsers. And, of course, Internet Explorer, our favorite. IE6, we actually checked out. I used a module that when you go to use an IE6 browser, it pops up and says IE6 is no longer supported. Update your browser, and you click it. It brings you to Internet Explorer's website. But at least they know that because it doesn't look right in IE6 that it's not going to. But I also use, I used to use Virtual PC, the Microsoft's version, to get the older versions of Explorer, but I found it really, really, really slow and hard to use. So I've actually been using Adobe Labs, their browser, and it goes through all these different browsers and runs your page on them, and it displays it for you. So the only problem I find with that is you can only do that after you launch, so because it runs through the browser. So that's the only problem I find. I wish I had a local version of that, because that would be awesome if I had that. So yes.
Can you tell us about your school's philosophy regarding giving students a role to add content? Is that difficult?
No, if you look at the subsite section, where Patty is talking about all these templates, these 10 templates, the goal there was to give them access. So what we had was a history, of course, of my friend built this for me in New York, and then I graduate, and their password goes with them, right? And the club, the organization website turns stagnant, and you have to throw it out and start over again. So we wanted to provide them with a platform, and we also, without saying you can't do this, we wanted to say you can't do this by giving them a template to sort of, give them the opportunity to be branded by us and be sort of branded by themselves at the same time.
So you were renegating, you were
Bringing it in. Absolutely. We're not forcing you to do it, but everyone's doing it because it's so easy for them. Yeah.
And to add on to that, I find a lot of the students, they first thing they say, do I have to know HTML? I'm like,
Right.
no, you have your little window, it looks just like Word. So
You don't
I
even
think
have to
a
know
lot
how
of
to
them are
spell.
afraid.
It's got spell check in.
Yeah, it has spell check in it too. So
I got to know the difference between there, and there, but
Did you end up actually submitting the modules you wrote back in?
no. No, sorry. And that goes back to me where I said I should have built it on a vanilla website. So if I built it on a vanilla website, then I would have been able to possibly submit it to Drupal, and that's just a learning experience. And I'm hoping to be able to do that for Drupal 7. So, yes?
Are your subsites are you using multi-site?
No.
So it's all with
It's all just with taxonomy.
Which WYSIWYG editor are you using?
I'm using, I think it's FCK Editor.
No, so you're still designated.
Oh, no, CK Editor. Yeah, CK Editor. Yeah, I'm not using the WYSIWYG module. I'm just using the CK Editor module.
and back to that question about allowing students access to creating content and corralling it in, another reason for doing that is they give us content for free. By having them write an author, we're able to access that content, and there might be something they've done, a news story they've done, an announcement they've made that is totally appropriate for our website. It's all in Drupal. It can be tagged and floated out to our front page or put in the right place. So they become part of the community without being able to run away with it at the same time.
Any more questions?
56
Sure.
minutes.
How does Drupal handle this? And how does it work?
It works the same as any other site. The only thing is that when you install modules, Drupal has their own base CSS that it's going to be there. It's part of the system. And then any modules that you add may have CSS also. So sometimes you can end up with 30 CSS files because of the different modules you have installed. They have a performance option in Drupal where you choose to compile all your CSS. So it ends up, instead of being 30 files, you can have only 4 files. It does the same thing for the JavaScript as well. It's a performance feature on Drupal.
Nice job, Patty.
Thank you.